Hey everyone, and welcome to the Lamtto RC14. So this is a wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto car stereo receiver. So this gives you the ability to add Apple CarPlay and Android Auto to any car, regardless of whether your head unit supports it or not. So firstly, let's take a look at the actual packaging. So this is the box that it comes in. It does come packaged very neatly, so it won't get damaged. Here you can see the widescreen display, and on the back you do have the DashCam built in. That's a 4K camera. Your ports are a USB Type-C, a AV in, your TF card slot, and your aux port for your physical connection to your stereo. In terms of other accessories, this is everything that you get. So you do get the mount itself, and this is the dash mount, and then it has an additional mount already connected to it. It comes with its own adapter, and the adapter does have a USB-A pass-through, so you can use other accessories. On the other end, it does have a USB-C connection. Here is your aux connection, and it does come with a trim removal tool and the rear camera as well for recording rear footage. Here's the connection for the rear camera, and this can't be mixed up with the aux port because it is smaller. Alongside that, you do get a little pamphlet, and this just gives you some information in terms of customer service and things like that. And alongside that, you do also get the manual. Here's some of the other accessories. So that's just to tidy up the cables, and here is the unit itself. So this is in its native sort of Android software, and you can see it does have some different icons. The layout is a little bit nicer compared to some of the ones that I've seen. Here's an image of the actual camera that's built in, and this is the software that as it's laid out. In terms of settings, you do have 3 tabs. You have general, you have camera, and then you have system, and I'll delve a little bit deeper into each one of these a little later in the video. And you also have your output connections, which is either the speaker, Bluetooth audio, FM audio, or the aux port. In this part of the video, I'm going to do all the connections and guide you through how everything works with that. Now firstly, coming on to the actual home screen, we do actually have a slightly different camera icon on this particular unit, and we've got a different background as well. So compared to all of the other Android head units with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in, this one has got slightly different layout, and in terms of the actual icons, they've got their own Bluetooth icon, the brightness indicator is slightly different, and the home icon's different as well. Same with the Bluetooth music and some of the other icons as well. So it's good to see that they have actually gone and done something a little bit different in terms of at least creating some of their own icons as well as background as well. The backgrounds obviously you can change in the settings on most of these kind of units, and same thing with the boot logo. There's normally a way that you can add a boot logo to the actual memory card, and then you can change the boot logo to whatever you want as well. So first thing we'll do is, because I have the camera connected, the rear camera, first thing we'll do is we'll come into the cameras. So as you can see, the left hand side is normally the built-in 4K camera, and as you can see, you can raise it and you can also swivel the camera as well in order to focus on different things. And here is the rear camera connected, so that is the rear camera, and as you can see, that is the sort of quality difference that you're getting. Now the rear camera, just looking at this, is also mirrored as well. So normally there is an option in the settings where you can actually flip that around, so you're getting a non-mirrored image. So at the moment you can see that if I just hold that there, you can see that the image on the screen is actually mirrored on the reversing camera. So that's the actual cameras themselves. If you want to go back home, you just press the home icon there. So on this left hand side, you do have some options for the volume. Then you have the brightness indicator, which is at the moment set on auto. If you do click it, you can then change it manually and make it brighter or dimmer. We'll just put that back on auto, and then the home icon. Okay, so the first thing that I want to test is the AirPlay, and if we just click on AirPlay, it will give you a little prompt. So if we hit confirm, it will now go into pairing mode for AirPlay. And if we come into Wi-Fi, we're looking for this particular Wi-Fi network, and on this particular unit it does actually tell you that you need to enter the password. On all the other units I've tested, it doesn't actually tell you what the password is. So we'll click on AirPlay, we'll enter the passwords 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 and hit join. Okay, so we are connected. And now if we go to control center and we click on smart screen, and that's it. So AirPlay is connected. If we will just come into an app just to show you the sort of real estate, so it's relatively quick in terms of switching. Let's go into IPTV Smarters and we'll just test playback on something, because one thing I did notice on one of the other units was the fact that the playback was a little choppy, so the frame rate was slightly different.
Is also with us in the studio. Good afternoon to you both. Before we get on to VAR for yourself,
several either side, and these would be fluted column but I've not seen one as a hopper before, so that is quite, that's a good selling point for it. I think salvage.
So yeah, similar thing. So the playback is a little choppy compared to the smoothness on the phone itself, but it's doing what it's intended to do. So it is transferring the video and it is giving you access to that function. So we'll now exit out of screen mirroring, and what we'll do is we'll switch it into CarPlay mode. If we hit the CarPlay icon, hit confirm. And once again, so now we come to Bluetooth rather than the Wi-Fi, and we're looking for T86 Pro 9E5A, and there it is at the bottom. So we'll click on that. It does the normal thing where it asks you to pair. So we'll hit pair, it'll ask you to sync the contacts. It'll normally do a little phone call thing at the top just there, which it's done. And then it should do one final prompt. Okay, so it's gone straight in this time. And it's kind of remembered what the last app was that I had loaded up on CarPlay, which was the Spotify app. So on this particular unit, because I have not switched it yet, it is still set with the settings on the left hand side. Let's see if we can find the settings, driving. So I think that particular setting will be in the main Android settings. So if we come back and we go to settings, and then we come to, yeah, this one. So left or right hand drive. Okay, so it needs to disconnect first. We'll just turn off Bluetooth on the phone. That should disconnect it. And now if we hit left or right, it'll give you the option to select left or right. So if we select right hand drive, go back home, turn our connections back on. Let's see if it automatically goes back in. Yeah, it does. So now you can see the settings are on the right hand side. Let's check the responsiveness of the apps. That's pretty good. Go into music, go into messages, now playing. Go to the split screen and swiping between them. It's kind of difficult to do this whilst I'm trying not to nudge it and ruin the actual recording itself. So yeah, everything seems to be working just fine. Once again, you do have assistive touch with some shortcuts, and you'd also have the home smart screen in order to go back home, and then you can access all your other settings. If you did want to switch to AirPlay mode, then I think the best way to do this is to disconnect from Bluetooth, and essentially you've got to completely disconnect. So put your phone in airplane mode, and then it'll allow you to switch to airplane mode once again. If we then take our phone out of airplane mode and then go to Wi-Fi, and then once again select the AirPlay option once it pops up. There we go, that's selected. And once again, let's test it, make sure it's still working, because I have had it on other devices where once I've connected via CarPlay, the mirroring stops working, but no, this appears to be working just fine. And as you can see, AirPlay is working perfectly fine as well. So once again, in order to, I think the easiest way is just put it into airplane mode. We'll need to stop mirroring first. There we go, it disconnects from airplane mode. Then go to CarPlay, hit confirm, take off airplane mode, and then it should automatically connect. Yeah, so as soon as it detects it, within 3 seconds, it's loaded back up. Let's just test something in terms of now playing. So we'll just hit anything. So at the moment, the volume appears to be quite low. Go back, we'll go to a different app just to make sure it's still working. We'll go to tune in, just go to Talk Sport.
Put your freelance knowledge to the ultimate test with the all-new TalkSport Football Trivia Board Game England Edition. Use your on-target trivia skills to take on all challenges and score the ultimate board game bragging rights just in time for the summer of football. Featuring hundreds of weird and wonderful questions about the...
There it is working. So as you can see, everything is working perfectly fine. Now the final thing is, let's find the power button. Let's just switch it off and we'll check the boot time. So that's the unit switched off. What we'll do is just power it back up now. And we'll test the boot up speed. So the unit itself within a couple of seconds, and the phone is next to it. So let's see if it automatically connects back onto Apple CarPlay as well. And there you go. So all working relatively quickly and relatively smoothly. The frame rate once again is not 60 FPS, it's probably around 30. So the only time that's really an issue is when you're swiping between the different screens. You can of course go in and change your wallpapers if you wanted to do so, and it gives you a little preview there. All the other Apple CarPlay features will be exactly the same as what you would expect from any CarPlay or Android Auto head unit. I can't obviously test Android Auto because I don't have any Android phones with me at the moment, but the CarPlay is working fine, so I'm going to presume that the Android Auto will also work just fine as well. So that's the demonstration in terms of how to set it up, how to get it working, and general usage. Next, what we'll do is we'll take a look at it in the car. Okay, but first let's take a look at some of the recordings from that 4K camera. So it seems whenever I do one of these tests, the weather always seems to be beautiful, and whenever I test a dash cam, it always tends to be raining. But yeah, as you can see, because of how I've got it mounted, because I've used that windscreen mount, you can see the mount in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. If you did choose to use the sort of dash mount where it mounts onto the dash itself, you can't get it quite so low. That's the reason why I use this particular one, but you then wouldn't have that obstruction. Another benefit of that particular one is you could probably, I mean, I've chosen to push this way forward in order to get it as smooth to the edge of the dash as I can to make it look better essentially. But if you want the functionality of the dash cam to work better, then I would suggest actually mounting the unit further back. You would probably have to reach further back for it, so it's a payoff between you get better dash cam footage but it's harder to use, or whether you have it further forward and you, as in this instance, you end up seeing a little bit of the bottom of the dash, but that's pretty much the par for most dash cams. So one of the things I'm really impressed with is the stability of this particular camera. So just there, that bump is actually quite intense, and as you can see, the camera actually did a pretty decent job in terms of just softening everything out. I'm guessing it's sort of over sampling on the actual sensor and then zooming in a little to give it a little bit of image stabilization, but yeah, it does a pretty decent job. It's not the clearest image out there, and because of the angle of the lens itself, it means you do have to get quite close before you can read number plates really clearly, but essentially you're gathering all the information that you would need. The whole point of a dash cam is, in the event of an accident, it covers your back and it proves that you weren't at fault, and this does that. The one downside is because it doesn't have its own built-in GPS sort of modules, you're not getting any speed data, but you are getting the date and time, but that you do have to go in and set. So you have to make sure that that is right, otherwise basically it could be recording in the middle of the night according to the clock, and it'll be broad daylight outside. In terms of handling HDR, yeah, it does a pretty decent job. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to actually hook up the rear camera, but essentially that's a 1080p image, so just imagine this but a lot softer. The difference with that particular one obviously being where it's mounted. So this is inside, whereas that one can be mounted externally, and it would be more so for reversing and things like that. It does give you a good view, and it does have the option, if you wire it up correctly, to actually automatically switch to it when you put it in reverse, and that would then show you the lines as well. Okay, so coming on to the installation now, I didn't bother tidying up any of these wires because I knew this was only a temporary install. You can make it look a lot neater than what you see in these videos. You can see I am using the dash mount, and this is what it looks like from outside. So if anything, the wires actually look neater from there than they do on the inside of the car. But like I said, if you wanted to, you can make these cables a lot tidier. Once again, you wouldn't need the second cable if your head unit has Bluetooth built in. My particular head unit, as mentioned before, the Bluetooth on it doesn't work, hence why I have to use the aux cable. What I would say though is the aux cable is the best audio, so if you want the best audio quality, then use the aux cable. As you can see, it's working, and the phone itself isn't plugged in. It is completely wireless, and as soon as you get in the car, you start it up. By the time you start driving off, it will have booted up and it will be working. You get all the benefits of Apple CarPlay without having to upgrade your head unit, and it means that it's portable as well, so you can take this from vehicle to vehicle and you don't have to worry about not having that functionality. So if you get used to using Apple Maps or even Google Maps from the Apple CarPlay system, then you can just continue doing so. Overall, I think this works really well. You can see here when it's inside the car, it's a lot easier to maneuver the screens and everything. It just works a lot easier. Obviously, the example earlier on, it wasn't in the best place. I was more set up for the actual recording to make sure I capture everything. But yeah, once it's in the car, you can use this single-handedly, and as I've said, because I've switched that when I'm in my driving position, obviously I can reach that home button a lot easier. Overall, I think this does a pretty decent job in terms of adding that functionality to older head units or head units that aren't compatible. As always, links will be in the description below. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I'd really appreciate if you can also give this video a thumbs up. And until the next one, thanks very much for watching.